Now, here my request is only 1 second. Did you found my number? Yeah, I gave it to everyone. 1 second. Yeah, now you can find my number. So, so someone please take the initiative. So by 6 or 6:30, if you didn't find that, let me know. A very interesting topic, foreign exchange risk and interest rate risk. So I want everyone to please focus on these two chapters only today. Okay, so I will be focusing on this. I think I can go with the session.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, that is my contact number. Yeah, yeah. So foreign exchange risk. Now here, risk is nothing but an uncertainty which might create a loss to the company. So that is considered as a risk. So it is a kind of uncertainty which creates a loss to the company is known as foreign exchange risk. Sorry, it is known as a risk. Suppose any unfavorable event, if it affects your performance, then that will be considered as a risk. So we will be mainly focusing on exchange rate systems, types of currency risk, changes in the exchange rates, and managing foreign currency risk. So these are the four major areas which we will be focusing under foreign exchange risk. Suppose for a better understanding, let me give a small example. Now let us assume that I purchased goods from a foreign supplier. A company purchased goods from a foreign supplier and he got a credit period of 3 months. So let us assume that on January 2021, company purchased the goods from the foreign supplier, right? And the worth of goods, the total value of the goods is $10,000. So 10,000 worth of goods has been purchased by the company from a foreign supplier on January 2020. And when he will be repaying the amount, because he got a credit period of 3 months, it means on 31st March 2021, the company should pay the amount $10,000 to the supplier. Now, this is the agreement between the company and the supplier. Now, when he purchased the goods, it means on January 2001, let us assume that the exchange rate $1 is equal to 70 rupees. On the day of the transaction, $1 is equal to 70 rupees. But when the company should pay the amount after 3 months, it is on 31st March 2021, company should pay the amount. Now, here we are not sure what will be the exchange rate on 31st March. So it can come down. It means it may fall below 70 or it may increase more than 70 also, right? Suppose if it is more than 70, let us assume that on the due date, if the dollar exchange rate appreciates, nothing but if the value increases, instead of 70, if it becomes 80, now don't you think it is a loss to the company? I hope you understood. Why it is loss? See, suppose it would have been only 70 rupees, the company need only 10,000 into 70. right? It means only 7 lakhs rupees are required to settle the transaction. But instead of 70, if the dollar rate goes to 80, now here the company requires 8 lakhs dollars to settle the transaction. So the excess which the company incurs to settle the transaction of the foreign supplier is known as foreign exchange risk. I hope you understood here, because if the fluctuation of the exchange rate affects the performance or affects the company, then that will be considered as a foreign exchange risk. I hope you understood the foreign exchange risk concept. Yes. You want me to explain the example once again, or this is clear? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Now let me explain it. So X purchased, suppose on January 2001, X purchased 10,000 worth of raw material from a foreign supplier, and he will be repaying the amount on 31st March, because supplier gave 3 months credit period to the company. Now, when he actually purchased the goods, let us assume that $1 is equal to 70 rupees. But on the due date, if the dollar rate appreciates, it means if it goes to 80, if $1 is equal to 80 rupees, then definitely it will be a loss to the company, because if there is no increase means the company would have required only 7 lakhs, that is 10,000 into 70. So company should have only 7 lakhs to settle the transaction. But because of increase in the exchange rate, now the company requires 8 lakh dollars. So the excess of 1 lakh is nothing but a kind of loss to the company. So these kind of losses which are faced by the companies because of fluctuations in the exchange rate are known as foreign exchange risk. So risk only focus only on the loss part. It means whatever the loss the company is expecting because of change in the exchange rate. So that is known as foreign exchange risk. I hope the example is clear. Is it clear? Yeah. Now, the exchange rate system, floating exchange rate, freely or managed, and fixed exchange rates. Now here an exchange rate is the price of a currency expressed in terms of another currency. I don't think I need to give an explanation on exchange rate. But here we need to mainly focus on types of currency risk. Now generally currency risk are three types. One is transaction exposure. Second one is translation, or we can also say it as accounting exposure. And the next one is economic exposure. Now we try to understand these three types of currency risk in detail. The first one is transaction. So the transaction risk is a risk of an exchange rate changing between the transaction rate, sorry, it is nothing but the risk of exchange rate changing between the transaction date and the subsequent settlement date. Now, if you can recollect my example, the transaction date is 1st January 2001. Settlement date is 31st March 2001. So transaction date is 1st January and the settlement date is 31st March. So whatever difference is there, whatever change in the exchange rate between these two dates is known as transaction risk. Suppose if the transaction would have settled immediately, it means on January itself, if the company would have paid the amount to the supplier, then there is no chance of any currency risk. But most of the business transactions are credit basis only, because on the same day, amount will not be settled. They require certain time. Now we generally say it as a credit period. So the risk which is arised because of change in the exchange rate between the transaction date and the settlement date is known as transaction risk. Because of postponing the payment, whatever risk you are incurring, especially relating to the exchange rate, that is known as transaction risk. So the impact can be assessed using the sensitivity analysis for various different exchange rates. So how we can assess the impact? Now the best thing to assess the impact is sensitivity analysis. Now this is very interesting concept. Sensitivity analysis means how the exchange rate differs. Now normally, now can anyone let me know? Just for 5 minutes discussion we'll have. I want active participation from the participants. Now, why the dollar value is superior compared to our Indian currency? Why $1 is equal to 70 rupees? Why not 1 rupee is equal to $70? What do you think? What might be the reason? Whatever you think, you can please feel free to share with me. Comparison of their standards of living to ours. Very good point, Srivardhani. It means standard of living is one factor, and Travis cause okay because the company is a more advanced and a developed country. Okay, this is also one of the reason. Any other points? Because India imports more than exports. Excellent point. Excellent point, James. Very good point. Because James says that compared with USA, our imports are more than the exports. Suppose if we are importing any product from USA, now we need to settle the transaction with their dollars. But instead of importing, if you would have exported, because they need our product. Now, if you would have exported, then we would have asked the company to settle the amount or the country to settle the amount in our Indian rupees. Excellent point. So imports are more than export. It means that generally, if you compare the two countries, India and UK or India and USA, sorry, this, yeah, here I understood your point, Srivardhani. So you're comparing the Chinese yuan with US or India? Okay. Now you mean to say that Chinese yuan is superior to India? Which currency is equal? It is equal to 11.43 of Indian rupees, right? Now, don't you think China's exports are more than imports of from our India? So that is the reason their value is more. Na? Once again, I repeat, if you compare, if you consider the two countries, suppose country A, suppose in China and India. Now, what do you think? Whether the China exports are more or imports are more in connection with India? Whether China exports? Yes, definitely. Because China exports are more, because they are exporting more goods to us. So definitely their currency will be superior compared with the India, right? See, a small example. Let us assume that I am an exporter and the participants, whoever one of your participant is an importer, right? So I'm exporting a product to the participant. Now, when I am exporting, what I will be saying that you should settle the settlement, you should settle the transaction in my currency. I won't accept your currency. If you want this product, you should settle the transaction in my currency. Then how the participant will get my currency? He need to purchase the currency in the market. I hope you got my point. He should purchase the currency. He need to purchase the Chinese yuan. Then that particular amount is used to settle the transaction. Did you understood my point? Now, if you are purchasing the foreign currency, now definitely the currency value will increase. Suppose if you go with the other point, that is imports. Let us assume that instead of exports, if you are importing more, Now, if I am importing the goods from the participant, then the participant will expect the settlement to be their home currency. Now, in that case, I need to purchase the currency, I need to settle the transaction. So definitely, if a company exports are more, then that particular country's what is this currency will be superior with the other country. Srivardhan, I don't know whether I clarified your query or not. Did I address your query or do you have any query? Yes. So that is one of the main reason of fluctuations in the currency rate. And in addition to the exports and imports, one more point is the resource mobilization capacity of an entity. How effectively the company is mobilizing their sorry, the country is mobilizing their resource. So this is a brief input on the currency value. So transaction risk, I hope you understood. So in the transaction risk, we were discussing about the sensitivity analysis. Suppose if the currency is more sensitive, then definitely the chance of translation risk is more. It means the translation risk will be very high. So before I go with translation, let anyone know if you have any query, please let me know on the transaction. So in simple terms, transaction risk is nothing but the risk which is arise because of change in the exchange rate between the transaction date and the settlement date. So if a particular country's currency is more sensitive in the sense if it changes the change in the other factors, then definitely the chances of transaction risk will be very high. Okay. So is that clear about transaction risk? Then the next one is translation risk. Now the translation exposure is a change in the value of subsidiary due to changes in the exchange rates. Now we generally consider this translation risk as accounting risk also. Now why it is considered as an accounting risk means, now if you have a knowledge on IAS 21, that is effect of changes in foreign currency risk. So now as per IAS 21, it clearly says that if you are dealing with the foreign currency, all the assets, suppose especially if you're dealing with a foreign subsidiary, so the foreign subsidiary assets should be recorded at the closing rate of exchange. It means there are certain points which are to be considered in order to record the assets and liabilities and the expense and incomes of a foreign subsidiary in the group account. It clearly says that all the P&L items should be exchanged by using average rate of exchange, and all the balance sheet items should be converted by using the closing rate of exchange. So these are specified by IAS 21, that is effect of changes in the foreign currency. So the risk which is caused because of accounting what concepts or because of the accounting or the financial reporting standards, then that is known as translation. And the other common one is economic risk. Now this economic risk is a variation in the value of the business due to changes in the exchange rates, causing a loss in the competitive strength. So here you can understand economic risk is a variation in the value of the business due to change in exchange rates, causing a loss. So if there is any significant change in the exchange rate, then that is known as an economic risk. Here you can see the expected exchange rate can be predicted and factored into the NPV analysis. So whatever fluctuations you are expecting because of the economic risk, economic factors, then that is known as economic risk. Now for your better understanding, let me give an example. Now as per, there are two famous theories. One theory is known as interest rate parity theorem, and the other one is purchase power parity theorem. Now especially purchase power parity theorem it states that the changes in the currency of two countries will be, it means the main factor which affects the currency values of two countries is the purchasing power, or in simple terms, inflation. Suppose example, if suppose if I take example of Bangladesh and India. Suppose if the inflation rate in Bangladesh is more compared with India, then definitely the currency of India will be more superior compared with the Bangladesh. So it means inflation is one of the major factors which affects the currency deviation of two economies. This is as per purchase power parity theorem. And the other theorem that is known as interest rate theorem. So as per this interest rate parity theorem, it mainly focuses on interest rates. So the interest rates of the two economies will also affect the exchange rate. So the economic risk is something which is affected by the economic factors like as I gave an example of interest rate and the inflation. So these kind of risk is known as economic. So just look into these risks, three risks. If you have any query on this, let me know. If you have any question on these three types of risk: transaction, translation, economic. Translation exposure risk again. Okay. Now translation is nothing but the risk which is arise because of considering the accounting principles. Now I already gave an example. Let me continue with the same example here. Yeah, first let me explain the translation, then I will go with the translation. Okay. Now let us assume that a multinational company is having a foreign subsidiary. Suppose I will take a Wipro company. Now Wipro company is having a foreign subsidiary in UK. So this Wipro company is having a foreign subsidiary in UK. Now generally Wipro company need to present their consolidated financial statement. It means they need to present the financial statements of all the group companies as a single company. Now this is mandatory. Now how the foreign subsidiary transactions can be presented in the group X? Because the UK company assets, liabilities, expenses and incomes might have disclosed in sterling, nothing but pounds. But Wipro company, it means the Wipro belongs to India. So when they present their financial statement, consolidated financial statement, they need to present it in rupees. Because here the functional currency of the group, Wipro group, is Indian rupee. But the foreign subsidiary of the Wipro, they prepared their financial statements in UK pounds. Now what we need to do, all those values which were expressed in the UK pounds should be converted into Indian rupees. Now in order to convert that, we need to follow IAS 21. There is an accounting standard called IAS 21. So IAS 21 mainly focus on effect of changes in the foreign currency. So what IAS 21 says, all the balance sheet items should be converted by using the closing rate of exchange. Now closing rate of exchange means whatever your financial year end is. Suppose if we assume 31st March as our financial year end. So the closing exchange rate on that particular date should be considered, and accordingly it should be converted into Indian rupee. So all the balance sheet items, it means all the assets and liabilities should be converted into Indian rupees by using the closing rate of exchange. And all the P&L items, that is all the expenses and income should be converted into Indian rupees by using average rate of exchange. So this is mandatory as per IAS 20. Now definitely there will be a risk, right? Because you are not considering either the exchange rate on the transaction date or the exchange rate on the settlement date. We are considering the average rate of exchange and the closing rate of exchange. So because of considering these two, there will be a deviation in the expenses and the income and even assets and the liabilities. So that is known as translation exposure. So I believe you understood this translation exposure now. Yeah. And one more query is transaction risk. Now transaction risk is, this is very simple. So the risk is which is arised because of the exchange difference between the transaction date and the subsequent date, nothing but the settlement date. So for a better understanding, so the company purchased the goods on 1st January, and when they purchase, let us assume that on the date $1 is equal to 70 rupees. But they will be settling the transaction. It means they will be repaying the amount to the supplier on 31st March. And on 31st March, let us assume that $1 is equal to 80 rupees. When the goods were purchased, it was only 70. When you are settling the transaction, it is 80. So the difference of 10 is considered as transaction. So I hope it is clear, Vandana. Is that clear? Transaction risk. Shall I move to the next one? Now here you can see the changes in the exchange rate. Now, as I mentioned, we do consider interest rate parity theorem and the purchase power parity theorem. Now, relating to purchase power parity theorem, we assume inflation as a major factor for change in the currency rates. And in case of interest rate parity theorem, we consider the interest rates as a major factor for change in the currency rate. So let me show the formula. Now just see, these formulas are very important. But just please focus on purchase power parity theorem. So as per purchase power parity theorem claims that the rate of exchange between between two currencies depend on the relative inflation rates within the respective country. So the purchase power parity theorem predicts that the country with the higher inflation will be subject to a depreciation of its currency. In simple language, the country which is having higher inflation, that particular country currency will be less. So I took an example of India and Bangladesh. If the inflation of the Bangladesh is high compared with the Indian inflation rate, let us assume that inflation in India is 6% and inflation of Bangladesh is 10%. Now, in that case, the currency of India will be superior to the currency of Bangladesh. It means I can say that 1 Indian rupee is equal to 2 Bangladesh currency. It means why the Bangladesh currency is inferior compared to India? Because their inflation rate is high. So inflation plays a major role in order to consider the value of the currency of two countries. So here they gave the formula. So S1 is equal to X1 is nothing but expected future spot rate. So is equal to current spot rate into 1 plus HC, nothing but inflation rate in the other country, nothing but the counter currency, and HB is nothing but inflation rate in the base country. Suppose if I am predicting, if I am trying to calculate the future exchange rate of, let us assume that on 1st January 2021, 1 Indian dollar is equal to, 1 Indian rupee is equal to 2 rupiah of, I don't know what is the currency symbol of Bangladesh. but I assume that it has rupiah. So 2 rupiah of Bangladesh. Now I want to predict the exchange rate in future. Now in order to predict that, I am considering the inflation rate as a base. So here the present exchange rate is 2 into 1 plus HC, that is inflation rate in the other country. It means the Bangladesh. Let us assume that inflation rate in the Bangladesh is 10% and inflation rate in our country is only 6%. So by substituting this information in the given formula, we can get the expected future. But there are certain assumptions. So we generally assume that it is a free market and there should not be any barrier for trade between the countries and no transport or the transaction. So any query on this PPP? Now can anyone guess or can anyone identify why we should consider the inflation rate? What is the role of inflation here? Suppose if the inflation rate of Bangladesh is more than India, then why the currency of Indian value will be more compared with the Bangladesh currency? What might be the reason? Simple logic is there. Just try to think. I hope you got my question. It will require more money to buy one Bangladesh rupee. Okay, India imports, it has to pay more for the goods. Yeah, you are near to the answer. Now let me clarify. Suppose if the inflation rate of Bangladesh is high, then definitely all their local goods prices will be high, right? All the local goods, yeah, inflation will reduce the value of the money. Very good point, Naina. So if the inflation of Bangladesh is high means the price for the local products will be high. Now, if the price of the local products is high, then the customer will tend to purchase the prices which are at low. It means, suppose if I take mobile phone as an example. So the mobile phone of a local company in the Bangladesh, let us assume that it is 10,000. So because their inflation is high. Now, a same mobile phone which is manufactured in India is available for only 7,000 in Bangladesh. So it means that the public will tend to purchase the prices for the products which are at less price. So indirectly, it will increase the import of Bangladesh. When the imports of the Bangladesh increases, now definitely they require the Indian currency to purchase it, and because of that, the Indian rupee. Now, actually, this was the case between the China and India. I hope most of you might be aware. There was a phase where the Chinese completely captured the electronic market in India. Of course, now it has minimized to a certain extent, but especially if you see from 2009 to 2016, the complete electronic market was captured by the Chinese product. The reason is the inflation of China was much less compared to the Indian inflation. So because of that reason, Chinese products were available at a less cost. So because of that, what happened? Most of us generally prefer to purchase those products because they are available at less cost. So it substantially increases the imports of India. So that's why the value. So shall I assume that this purchase power parity theorem is clear? Is that clear? Any queries? So that's why we don't need to consider certain assumptions. There should not be any restrictions for the trade. It should be a free market. No transport or transaction cost. These are the three assumptions we consider. So before I go with the next one, please let me know if you have any question. Now the next one is interest rate parity theorem. Now we try to discuss what is this interest rate. Okay. Now in this interest rate parity theorem, it mainly focus on the interest rate. Good question here. Now generally, yes, this is inflation. High inflation rate might cause a deficit in the balance of payments. Yeah, that possibility is there. Because as I mentioned, if the high inflation rates are very high, then the customers generally prefer to purchase the foreign goods. It means automatically the imports will be more compared with the exports. Or if the imports are more compared with the exports, that definitely can lead to a BOP deficit. Is that clear, Adi? Now, interest rate parity theorem, so IRPT. So IRPT claims that the difference between the spot and the forward exchange rate. So the difference between the spot and the forward exchange rate is equal to the difference between the interest rates available in the two currencies. So the forward rate is a future exchange rate agreed now for buying or selling an amount of currency on an agreed future. So IRPT predicts that the country with the higher interest rate will see its forward rate depreciate. And what an investor gains by investing in a currency with a higher interest rate must be lost when changing the investment back into the home currency. So to calculate the current forward rate, here we will be considering this formula. But I want everyone to please look into this important lines. IRPT predicts that the country with a higher interest rate will see its forward rate depreciate. Now, what an investor gains by investing in a currency? What an investor gains by investing in a currency with a higher interest rate must be lost when changing the investment back into home currency. Now, before I explain this, can anyone let me know what this means? Why the currency of an economy whose interest rate is high will be less compared with the currency of an economy whose interest rate is low? What might be the reason? Again, I want to take the example of now we can go with India and UK. Suppose if the interest rates in India is high compared to the interest rates in USA, then we generally says that Indian rupee is inferior. It will be having it depreciate compared with the UK dollar. What might be the reason? In what way interest rate is connected? Yes, you can take your time. I will be giving 2 minutes time. I request the participants to go through the paragraph, try to understand what actually it means. Yes. Anyone? If an investor invests in a country with a higher interest rate, his return will be higher. Okay, yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Travis. Interest will be, yeah, his return will be higher. Perfectly correct. Then Farhan says that the taxes and the risk of future in the country of investors. Okay, so taxes might be one of the reasons to a certain extent. Yes, we do consider that. Any other point? Now let me focus on the service one. He says that investor invests in a country with a higher interest. Now his return will be higher, right? Yeah, obviously he will be getting the higher return. But once he gets the return, he need to convert it back into the cash. Now first, let me point out two important points here. The first thing is if the interest rates are high. Now let us assume that in an economy, if now generally when the interest rates are high in an economy, if there is no sufficient flow of money, if there is no sufficient flow of money, definitely the interest rate will be high. Now, because of lack of money, interest rate will be high, and because of high interest rate, then there will be lack of initiations from the entrepreneur. It means it will definitely affect the production of the economy because there are no funds. If they want to see, if they want to start any business or if they want to produce the goods, now the economy need to provide the required funds at less interest. But instead of less interest, if the interest rate is high, then definitely it will be affect the production of the company. It means that the economy won't be sufficient. It means they won't be in a position to produce the required products. So if they are unable to produce the required product, then how the needs of the customers will be, how the needs of the consumers will be fulfilled. The only source is we need to get it from the other countries. Now, if you are buying it from the other countries, then obviously your imports will be high. And again, if the imports are high, it leads to depreciate in the country economy. Now, correct. Did you got my point? Suppose if the funds are available at less rate of interest, then it will encourage the entrepreneurs. What is this to produce the required products? If that is not the case, then the economy needs to depend upon the other countries. If you see most of the African countries, they do have good human resources, but because of lack of money flow and because of high interest rates, then very less production will be done in those countries, and they depend upon the other countries for their for fulfilling their requirements. And now I will be going back to the Travis. Here he mentioned about the chances of getting high return. Of course, suppose let us assume that if the interest rates in an economy is high, yes, it might pull the foreign investors. Now, the foreign investors, whatever return which he gets, now in order to convert into this home currency, again they will be losing their money. I hope you understood it. So, but here in simple technique, you need to understand if an economy interest rate is high, it means that the flow of money in the economy is less. If the flow of money is less, then there the production will be less. If the production is less, their imports will be increased. If the imports are increased, then definitely the currency will depreciate. Is that clear about this IRPT? Is that clear? Yes. I'm expecting response from the public. Yeah. Then expectation theory. Now the expectation theory states that the current forward rate is an unbiased predictor of the spot rate at that point in the future. So this states that when interest rate increases the flow of money, yeah, it means what I'm trying to say, Naina, normally when the interest rate will increase in an economy, if the flow of money is less, if the income level of the population is less, or if the money flow is less, then only interest rate will be high. So if the interest rate is high, then it will definitely affect the production activity because the economy won't be in a position to produce all their required products for fulfilling their customers' requirements. Now, in that case, they need to depend upon the external source, nothing but import. Okay. Now, the main factor for higher interest rate is low income level. Low income level and low flow of money. And one more thing here, just for 1 minute, I want to clarify one more point. Now, we can't say that if the money is dumped into the economy, we can't say that their currency value will increase. If the interest rate is high, then that means there is a high flow of money. No, 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 no. What I'm trying to say, see, let me give a small example. Suppose around 100 participants are there in this session. Now let us assume that all the 100 participants are having 1 lakh each. Everyone is having 1 lakh. Now I want to borrow 1 lakh from you, right? Now, will I get the borrowed amount at high interest rate or low interest? All of you are having, each one of you are having 1 lakh with you. And now I want to borrow 1 lakh. Now, can I get 1 lakh at high interest rate or low interest? Why? Why low interest rate, Leela? Can you clarify? So Leela thinks low interest rate, perfectly correct. But why the low interest? Yes, because everyone is having the amount. Now, here, as Farhan rightly mentioned, no demand. Only one person requires the amount, and everyone is having. So if Leela wants me to pay 8% interest, then Farhan might offer me with only 3% interest. Because the flow of money is high, so definitely the interest will be low. Now let us assume that only Leela and Farhan is having 1 lakh each, right? And we require around 30 of the participants requires amount. It means the demand is high, but only a limited level of income, limited level of funds are. Now in that case, these two persons will definitely charge a higher rate of interest because the demand is there. So that's why if an economy income level is high, then definitely the interest level will be low. If the income or the money flow is less, then definitely the interest rate will be high. Now, I'm not saying that if an economy tries to dump the cash into the economy, will it currency value increases? No. We can't say that an economy dumps the funds into the economy if the value, it won't boost up the currency value. The reason is not only the availability of funds, there are other factors which affects. The other factors are how effectively they are utilizing their resources. It means what are their available resources. The available resources also plays a very important role. So if you can recollect, I gave an example of Zimbabwe. They dumped the funds into the economy, but they don't have sufficient resources. So because of significant increase in the income level, now what was the effect? The inflation has been significantly increased because the sufficient resources are not there. Because the money cannot directly satisfy the human wants. It should be satisfied with a consumer product. But unfortunately, there are lack of consumer products in an economy. So again, this is a new topic. I don't want to go into deep of that. But just here you need to understand that if an economy interest rate increases, so it will discourage the industries to produce the goods, which will encourage the imports of an economy. Okay, is that clear? Any question? So this expectations theory. So expectation theory states that the current forward rate is unbiased predictor of the spot rate at the point in future. It means both that expectation theory says that we can consider the current spot rate. So it means by considering the current spot rate, we can predict the future exchange rate. It means not exactly, it is very difficult to get 100% prediction. But by considering the current spot rate, we can do that. There are several factors for it. And international Fisher effect, it states that the interest rate differentiates between the two countries provide an unbiased predictor of future change. So international Fisher effect mainly focus on the interest rate, which I already explained. So any queries on this? Yeah. Now the important concept of managing the currency risk. Now here the difference between, see, spot rate, here you can see you need current forward rate is an unbiased predictor of the spot rate at the point in future. It means that whatever your predicted price is there in future, that can be considered as the spot. Okay, so we will consider the current rate as a base in order to predict the future. Okay, now how to manage the foreign currency risk? Now here, when it comes to the management of foreign currency risk, now taking measures to eliminate or reduce the risk is called hedging the risk. Now technically, the procedures which are followed to minimize the risk is known as hedging the risk. We can say it as hedging the risk or hedging the exposure. Hedging is nothing but the process to minimize the risk. Now we'll focus on the different approaches which will try to minimize the risk. So one is there are certain practical approaches, very interesting point. So the first practical approach is invoice in home currency and pay for all imports in home currency. Now practically it might be difficult. Invoice in home currency means what do you understood by this? Suppose I purchased a product from a foreign supplier. Let us assume that I purchased from a USA supplier. Now, in order to minimize my foreign currency risk, what I can do, I can invoice the amount in my home currency. Instead of raising the invoice in dollars, if I can raise it in rupees, then there is no home foreign risk. But there is no currency. But here the major point is, will your supplier accept that? So that is the main question. If you can convince the supplier to accept the invoice in your home currency, then definitely there is no foreign currency risk. Okay, I hope you understood the first point. Is that clear? The first point of for the practical approach. Let me know whether you understood it or not. Now the second one is do nothing. So here also I won't explain anything about this. I don't need. I hope you might have understood it. Do nothing means yes, simply try to bear the risk. That's it. Then the third option is leading. This is very interesting. Now leading means changing the currency early if it is estimated that that will be advantageous. Now let us assume that I purchased a raw material from my foreign supplier, and when I purchased it, let us assume that $1 is equal to 70 rupees. And when should I pay? Let us assume that after 3 months. It means on 31st March I need to pay the payment. But I came to know that after 1 month, it means from 1st February onwards, I am expecting a significant increase in the exchange rate. It means $1 might goes to 100 rupees. So in that case, what I can do, I can request my supplier to accept the payment before. It means to accept the payment before the due date. So I may request the supplier that I will be paying the amount in the January month itself, because in January it is only $30. Sorry, $70. So I may request the supplier to accept the payment before the due date, so that I can minimize my future foreign currency. This concept is known as leading. Then lagging. Now this is completely contrast to the concept of leading. It means that my due date is 31st March, but after 31st March, I'm expecting that the currency value will decrease. Now I may request my supplier to extend my credit period with one more month, so that I can take the advantage of decrease in the currency exchange rate. That is known as lagging. Then the next one is matching. Now matching means matching the inflows and outflows in the foreign currency. Suppose I purchase $10,000 worth of material from a foreign customer, sorry, foreign supplier. Now I need to match it with a credit sales to a foreign customer of equivalent 10,000. It means if I require a cash outflow of the foreign currency, I need to create an equivalent of cash inflow of the foreign currency, so that my foreign currency risk will be minimized. Now the other one is use the foreign currency bank accounts. Now there are some NRI accounts or the foreign currency bank accounts. So it means that we can directly purchase the foreign currency and we can store it in the bank account and which can be utilized to settle the transactions in the future. Now these are the practical approaches for minimizing the foreign currency. So this I will be giving 2 minutes time. I want everyone to keep looking to these 6 approaches. If you have any query, let me know. Yeah, leading and lacking both are speculating activities only. Here. Not only leading, both leading and lagging, a kind of speculation is involved. Yeah. Now netting, let me explain. Uh, the loss. Yeah, definitely. That was the point I am saying. Na? If you invoice in the home currency, first you should convince your supplier. So practically, I'm not saying that it is possible, but if your supplier is convinced with that, then you can invoice it. Suppose here, let me give an example. Suppose if the availability of the suppliers is more, let us assume that we want to purchase a particular product and the suppliers of this product is available in UK, in USA, Australia, New Zealand. It means the suppliers are more. Now, in that case, don't you think supplier might compromise to invoice in the home currency? If only one supplier means definitely that fellow won't accept it. So first I may go to a USA supplier. If he won't accept the home invoicing, then I may prefer with the other supplier. I hope you might have understood my point. A good question. Which among these is more practical one? Now, generally, the more practical one is here we can say that matching the inflows and outflows. If possible, we need to see. And the other practical one is foreign currency bank. So among these, the best practical approach is foreign currency bank account. Okay. The foreign currency bank account is the best practical one. And one more query here is netting. Now netting is, so it means that if you are purchasing any product from your supplier and if you are selling any product to the same supplier, so you can deduct that particular amount and the net amount that is known as netting. So matching is nothing but a foreign currency inflow should be matched with foreign currency out. Or let me put in for suppose I purchase the material and I should pay $10,000. Now, if I can create a source which gives me $10,000, now what will be the common source for the entities? That is selling. So if I can sell same 10,000 worth of goods to a foreign customer who belongs to same country, then I can utilize the 10,000 to settle the transaction with my supplier. That is known as matching cost. I hope it is clear now. Any other query? Then trading in the currency. Now trading in currency means The foreign exchange market is an international market in which the national currencies are traded. So these are nothing but instead of shares, we trade on the currencies. These are known as forex. We generally say it as forex market. So foreign exchange market. Now here first we need to make I request the participants to please. Yeah. So in this trading in currencies, we focus on bid and offer price. Now this is very, very important. Now the banks dealing in the foreign currency quote two prices for an exchange rate. It means we do have several banks which generally deal with the foreign currency. It means directly we can go to a bank, we can purchase the foreign currency, and even we can sell the foreign currency to the bank. So the bank dealing in the foreign currency quote two prices. One is a bid price and other one is offer. Our offer price is nothing but a kind of sale price and selling price, and bid price is nothing but a purchase price. Now try to understand the difference. Very, very interesting and very important. Always the bank will quote uh, a bid price, nothing but the bid price will be lower compared to the offer price. Now we try to understand why it is. Because the banks which are dealing with the foreign currency, what is their profit? The difference between the offer price and the bid price. Now, generally, technically, we say it as spread, SPREAD. So, the difference between the higher offer price and the bid price is known as spread, and this spread is the profit for the bank. Now, we try to understand this bid price and offer. For example, a bank dealer, a dealer might quote a price of sterling to US dollar of 1.4325 to 1.43330. So the lower rate, that is 1.4325, is the rate at which the dealer will sell the variable currency, that is US dollar, in exchange for the base currency, that is sterling. So it means that suppose uh, if a customer want to, here you can see, sell the variable currency in exchange for a base currency. So base currency is nothing but sterling to US. So before I explain this, what do you understood about this concept? Lower rate. Yes. So here the variable currency is what? US dollar. The variable currency is US dollar. So, and they are exchanging it with the base currency sterling. Okay. So a customer wants US dollar and he want to exchange the sterling. So he want to exchange the sterling. Yeah. Now let me explain this part. So here a customer want to exchange the sterling and he want to get the US dollar. So in this case, for one sterling, the bank will be offering 1.4325 US dollar. And the next rate, higher rate. So 1.4330 is the rate at which the dealer will buy the variable currency, US dollar, in exchange for the base currency sterling. It means that if a customer want to exchange the US dollar, he needs to pay 1.433 US dollars to get one sterling. Or for your better understanding, can I take dollar and Indian rupees so that it will be clear? Shall I take that example? If you are confused with it, right? So here if I take US dollars versus Indian rupee, okay. So let us assume that the base price is 70, that is bid price is 70 and the offer price is 75. We'll assume that. Bid price is 70 and the offer price is 75. Now, in the first case, if a customer wants, okay, if a customer wants US dollars, or let us assume that if I, okay, here I'm taking the, let me clarify the base currency and the US dollar. So here my base currency is Indian rupees and US dollar is my the variable currency. I want to exchange with it. And as I mentioned, my bid price is 70 and offer price is 70. Now in the first case, so customer wants the US dollars. It means he wants to purchase the US dollar. And he will be exchanging the sterlings. Sorry, he will be exchanging the Indian rupees to get the US dollars. So what should be the price? Now what price the customer need to pay? It means at what price the banker will selling the 70. It means here you can see 1.4325. So 70. I hope you understood. Is it clear? Yes? Or still any confusion? Okay, let me explain a concept. Very, very simple concept. Suppose we'll think from a bank perspective. Now bank is dealing with the foreign currency. Okay. Now a customer came and he want US dollars. So customer want to purchase the US dollars from the bank. It means banker is selling the US dollars to the customer. And what that fellow is exchanging? Sterling. So in order to exchange that, the banker, it means the lower rate, that is 1.4325, if the dealer will sell the variable currency in exchange for 1 cent. It means if the customer give 1 sterling, the bank will be giving 1.43 USD, 1.4325 USD. But if it is a reverse case, if the customers want to sell the US dollars and he want to get the sterling, in that case, the rate, the offer price would be 1.433. Now, is that clear or still confused? So the difference, whatever the difference is there, 0.05, that is nothing but the profit to the bank. Yeah, in simple language, yes, that is the case, sir. Correct. Now here in the highlighted part here you can observe for 1 sterling how much they are considering 1.4325 as it means that 1 sterling is equal to $1.4325, but in the higher rate 1.4330 is 1 for 1 sterling. So the difference is nothing but, or for your better understanding, let's consider just consider this 1.4325 as 2 and consider it as 3. This is 2 and this is 3. We will eliminate the zeros. So 2 and 3. Now in the first case, what happens? The customer wants the US dollars and he is having the sterling, right? Now in that case, for 1 sterling, the bank will pay only $2. Okay, for 1 sterling, the bank will pay only $2. But in reverse case, here what happened? The customer is having $2. Now he wants sterling. Now in that case, bank will collect $3 to give one service. I hope you understood with this. Okay. Is that clear or you want me to repeat it? If you have any confusion, please feel free to ask me. I don't want you to have any confusion on it. Yes. Yes, Travis, Devardhani, Jerome, others. Shall I assume that you understood the concept? Okay. So here you can see. So remember that the bank will always trade at the rate that is more favorable to itself. So in the given example also, so 3 is more favorable than 2. So the difference between the bid and offer price, we generally know it's considered as spread. I already mentioned this, and represents the transaction cost and the profit of the deal. So this spread includes the transaction cost and the profit of the deal. So depreciation and appreciation of the currency. When one currency depreciates against the another, the other currency will appreciate. So naturally, this is common. And for instance, here they gave an example. If an exchange rate between US dollar and British pound, now let us assume that if it moves from one US dollar, it means, yeah, sorry. If it, suppose if it is 1.5 US dollar is equal to 1 pound, so 1.4 US dollars to 1 pound. Now, in this case, we can say that US dollar has been appreciated compared with the pound. And in the same case, pound value has been depreciated. Because previously 1.5 US dollar is equal to 1 pound. Now it is 1.4 is equal to 1. So from dollar perspective, the value has been appreciated, and from the pound perspective, the value has been depreciated. So is that clear? Any query? Now, then hedging this foreign contract will have a discussion. That's easy. Okay. So any question? So here a small task I will be giving. I request everyone to please go through interest rate risk also. So please go through interest rate risk. Okay. So any query on today's discussion? Yes. Do you have your regular become classes today? Yeah, okay. So just take a break for 10 minutes. Okay. From 11:30 to what is your become timing? 11:30 to 5, 4:30. So it means your online sessions start by 10 in the morning and it ends by 4:30 or 5. Great, great. Okay then. So that's it. We'll meet tomorrow.